I stated in the first part of this list, it is difficult to determine the 5 best of anything, let alone horror movies, a genre that is so vast that you're bound to miss a gem here or there. However, let's focus primarily on stats, the movies that were most adored and acclaimed by critics and fans alike. So today on Top 5 Scary Videos, I'm going to be counting down our list of the top 5 highest rated horror movies of all time, part 2. And with that, let's jump in. In at 5, Rosemarys Baby. Rosemarys Baby is a 1968 psychological horror film written and directed by Roman Polanski, based on the novel Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin. The film stars Mia Farrow, John Cassavetes, and Clay Tanner and chronicles the story of a pregnant woman who suspects that an evil cult wants to take her baby for use in their rituals. The film instantly earned universal acclaim from film critics and won a slew of awards and nominations in the process, being deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Today, the film is widely regarded as a classic, with it having an approval rating of 97% on Rotten Tomatoes, with the general consensus reading, I quote, "a frightening tale of Satanism and pregnancy that is even more disturbing than it sounds thanks to convincing and committed performances by Mia Farrow and Ruth Gordon." However, not everyone agreed. Renata Adler from the New York Times wrote, "The movie, although it is pleasant, doesn't seem to work on any of this dark or powerful terms. I think this is because it is almost too extremely plausible. The quality of the young people's lives seems the quality of lives that no one knows, even to the point of finding old people next door to avoid or lean on. One gets very annoyed that they don't catch on sooner." Despite this, the film has a long-lasting legacy, with it igniting a trend of movies focusing on Satan worshippers, including The Brotherhood of Satan, Mark of the Devil, Black Noon, and The Blood on Satan's Claw. Not to mention the scene in which Rosemary is assaulted by Satan has been ranked to number 23 on Bravo's The 100 Scariest Movie Moments. The film went on to win an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, as well as a nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay. Coming in at 4, Psycho. Psycho is a 1960 psychological horror film directed and produced by Alfred Hitchcock, and written by Joseph Stefano. It stars Anthony Perkins, Janet Leigh, John Gavin, and Vera Miles, and was based on the 1959 novel of the same name by Robert Bloch. The movie itself centers on Marion Crane, who ends up at a secluded motel after stealing money from her employer, and the motel's owner-manager Norman Bates, and its aftermath. Psycho was initially seen as a departure from Hitchcock's previous work, such as North by Northwest, with Psycho being filmed in black and white and by a television crew. Upon release, the film received mixed reviews. However, as the years passed and with outstanding box office returns, Psycho was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, including Best Supporting Actress and Best Director. Psycho is now considered to be one of Hitchcock's best films and is praised as a major work of cinematic art by film critics and scholars. It is often ranked among the greatest films of all time, as it set a new level of acceptability for violence, deviant behavior, and sexuality in American cinema. It was, upon its release, the prime example of the type of film that appeared in the United States during the 1960s after the erosion of the production code. It was unprecedented in its depiction of sexuality and violence, right from the opening scene in which a man and a woman are seen in bed together. In the production code standards at the time, unmarried couples shown in bed together would have been taboo. Criticism aside, on Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 96%, with the general consensus reading, "Infamous for its shower scene, but immortal for its contribution to the horror genre." Because Psycho was filmed with tact, grace, and art, Hitchcock didn't just create modern horror, he validated it. Preach. In at 3, Get Out. Get Out is a 2017 horror film written and directed by Jordan Peele in his directorial debut. The movie stars Daniel Kaluuya, Allison Williams, and Catherine Keener, with the movie following a young African-American man who uncovers a disturbing secret when he meets the family of his white girlfriend, Rose Armitage. The film instantly received praise upon its release, specifically for its screenplay, direction, performances, and satirical themes. The movie was also chosen by the National Board of Review, the American Film Institute, and Time as one of the top 10 films of the year. At the 90th Academy Awards, it was even nominated for 4 awards, including Best Picture, with Peele winning for Best Original Screenplay. The movie received critical acclaim, with it holding a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, with the general consensus reading, "Funny, scary, and thought-provoking, Get Out seamlessly weaves its trenchant social critiques into a brilliantly effective and entertaining horror comedy thrill ride." The film for a period of time actually held a 100% approval rating, making it one of the highest rated movies of 2017. Now, despite the film's critical acclaim, the movie did divide Oscar voters, with many older members of the Academy either dismissing the film or just choosing not to watch it at all. One anonymous Oscar voter even stated, I quote, "What bothered me was that instead of focusing on the fact that this was an entertaining little horror movie that made quite a bit of money, they started trying to suggest it had deeper meaning than it does. And as far as I'm concerned, they played the race card, and that really turned me off. In fact, at one of the luncheons, the lead actor, who is not from the United States, was giving us a lecture on racism in America and how Black Lives Matter. And I thought, what does this have to do with Get Out? They're trying to make me think that if I don't vote for this movie, I'm a racist." That comment really angered me, more than you can imagine. I'm angry now. Honestly, it was probably Clint Eastwood, that racist bastard. That aside, the movie premiered at the Sundance Film Festival on January 23, 2017 and went on to gross $255 million worldwide on a $4.5 million budget, making it the 10th most profitable film of 2017. Coming in at 2, The Exorcist. The Exorcist is a 1973 supernatural horror film directed by William Friedkin and produced and written for the screen by William Peter Blatty, based on the 1971 novel of the same name by Blatty. The film stars Ellen Burstyn and Linda Blair, with the movie centering on an actress who begins to notice dangerous changes in the behavior and physical makeup of her 12-year-old daughter Reagan. Meanwhile, a young priest begins to doubt his faith while dealing with his mother's sickness. On December 26, 1973, the movie was released, with audiences flocking to see it, waiting in long lines during winter weather. However, some viewers had adverse reactions, often fainting or vomiting to specific scenes such as the realistic cerebral angiography, which turned out to be very real. There were even reports of heart attacks and miscarriages. A psychiatric journal carried a paper on cinematic neurosis triggered by the movie's events. Newsweek even reported on the release, stating, "On December 26, a movie called The Exorcist opened in theaters across the country, and since then all hell has broken loose." Now, considering it was a horror movie that had gone way over budget and did not have any major stars, folks didn't have high hopes for The Exorcist. However, it went on to gross $1.9 million in its first week, setting house records in each theater it played. After several reissues, the film has grossed around $232.6 million in the United States and Canada, which makes it the 9th highest grossing film of all time in the US and Canada, and the top grossing R-rated film of all time. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 85%, which is a little low in my opinion, with the general consensus reading, "The Exorcist rides its supernatural theme to magical effect, with remarkable special effects and an eerie atmosphere, resulting in one of the scariest films of all time." And finally, coming in at number 1, The Shining. The Shining is a 1980s psychological horror movie produced and directed by Stanley Kubrick and based on Stephen King's 1977 novel of the same name, starring Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, Scatman Crothers, and Danny Lloyd. The movie follows Jack Torrance, played by Nicholson, an aspiring writer and recovering alcoholic who accepts a position as the off-season caretaker of the isolated historic Overlook Hotel in the Colorado Rockies. Wintering over with Jack are his wife, Wendy Torrance, and young son, Danny Torrance. Danny possesses the shining ability that enables him to see into the hotel's horrific past. However, he's not the only one with the power. The hotel cook, Dick Halloran, also has this ability and is able to communicate with Danny telepathically. On top of that, the hotel is housing some dark secrets, with its previous winter caretaker going insane and killing his family and himself. Now, after a winter snowstorm leaves the family isolated, Jack's sanity deteriorates due to the influence of the supernatural forces that inhabit the hotel, placing his wife and son in danger. Now, there were several versions for theatrical release, each of which were cut shorter than the one before it, with around 27 minutes being cut in total. Upon release, reactions were mixed, but none disliked the movie more than Stephen King, who criticized the film due to its deviations from the original novel. However, that didn't deter fans and critics alike, with the movie now being regarded as one of the greatest and most influential horror films ever made. In 2006, Roger Ebert, who was initially critical of the movie, inducted the film into his Great Movies series, saying that Stanley Kubrick's cold and frightening The Shining challenges us to decide who is the reliable observer, whose idea of events can we trust. It is this elusive open-endedness that makes Kubrick's film so strangely disturbing. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film currently holds a rating of 85%, with the general consensus reading, "Though it deviates from Stephen King's novel, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining is a chilling, often baroque journey into madness, exemplified by an unforgettable turn from Jack Nicholson." Well, there we have it. You guys agree with our list? Were there any horror movies that we missed. Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below and perhaps we can do a part 3. And on that note, if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another scary vid. And until next time, see you later.